Standardized testing has long been a cornerstone of educational systems across the globe, shaping curricula, influencing teaching methods, and acting as a benchmark for student achievement and school performance. These tests, designed to be administered and scored in a consistent manner, are often used to assess students' knowledge, skills, and abilities in specific subject areas. While standardized testing offers certain undeniable benefits, it also presents a range of challenges and criticisms that have sparked ongoing debates among educators, policymakers, parents, and students alike. To truly understand the complexities of standardized testing, it is essential to critically examine both its advantages and drawbacks, considering not just the intended outcomes, but also the unintended consequences that ripple through classrooms and communities. One of the primary arguments in favor of standardized testing is its ability to provide an objective measure of student achievement. By administering the same test under uniform conditions, proponents argue that it becomes possible to compare results across different schools, districts, and even countries. This comparability can help identify gaps in learning, highlight successful teaching strategies, and ensure that all students are held to the same academic standards. For policymakers and administrators, standardized test scores offer a seemingly straightforward way to gauge the effectiveness of educational programs and allocate resources accordingly. In some cases, these tests have played a pivotal role in highlighting systemic inequalities, prompting reforms aimed at closing achievement gaps between different demographic groups. Furthermore, standardized tests can serve as a valuable tool for accountability. When schools and teachers are held responsible for their students' performance, there is a greater incentive to maintain high standards and strive for continuous improvement. In theory, this accountability can drive innovation in teaching methods, encourage the adoption of evidence-based practices, and ensure that all students receive a quality education. For students themselves, standardized tests can provide a clear sense of where they stand academically, helping them identify areas of strength and weakness. In some contexts, high-stakes standardized tests also function as gateways to educational and professional opportunities, such as college admissions or scholarship awards, offering a merit-based path to advancement. Another often cited benefit of standardized testing is its efficiency. Large numbers of students can be tested in a relatively short period of time, and advances in technology have made it possible to score many tests electronically, reducing both time and cost. The standardized format also helps to minimize subjective bias that might arise from individual teachers' assessments, promoting fairness and consistency in grading. In addition, data collected from standardized tests can inform curriculum development, guiding educators in aligning instruction with desired learning outcomes. By identifying trends and patterns in student performance, schools can make data-driven decisions that ultimately enhance the quality of education. Despite these advantages, standardized testing is far from uncontroversial. One of the most significant criticisms centers on the notion that such tests often fail to capture the full range of students' abilities and potential. Critics argue that standardized tests tend to emphasize rote memorization and basic skills at the expense of higher-order thinking, creativity, and problem-solving. As a result, students who excel in areas not easily measured by multiple-choice questions, such as artistic expression, critical analysis, or collaborative work, may find their talents overlooked or undervalued. This narrow focus can also lead to a teaching to the test mentality, where instruction is geared primarily toward test preparation rather than fostering a deep and meaningful understanding of the subject matter. The pressure associated with high-stakes standardized testing can have profound effects on students' mental health and well-being. In many educational systems, test results carry significant consequences, not only for students, but also for teachers and schools. Students may experience anxiety, stress, and a fear of failure, which can undermine their motivation and enjoyment of learning. For some, repeated exposure to high-pressure testing environments can contribute to burnout and disengagement, particularly among those who struggle academically or face additional challenges outside of school. Moreover, the emphasis on standardized testing can exacerbate existing inequalities, as students from disadvantaged backgrounds may lack access to test preparation resources or face barriers that impede their performance. Teachers, too, are affected by the demands of standardized testing. The need to produce high test scores can constrain instructional autonomy, limiting teachers' ability to tailor lessons to the unique needs and interests of their students. In some cases, educators may feel compelled to focus disproportionately on tested subjects, neglecting other important areas such as the arts, physical education, or social-emotional learning. The use of test scores as a primary measure of teacher effectiveness has also been criticized for failing to account for the myriad factors that influence student achievement, many of which lie beyond the control of individual teachers. This approach can foster a climate of competition rather than collaboration, undermining morale and detracting from the broader goals of education. Another concern relates to the cultural and linguistic biases that can be embedded in standardized tests. While these assessments are designed to be fair and impartial, research has shown that certain groups of students, particularly those from minority or non-dominant language backgrounds, may be disadvantaged by the content or format of the tests. Questions that rely on specific cultural references or assume familiarity with particular ways of thinking may not accurately reflect the knowledge and abilities of all test takers. This can perpetuate disparities in educational outcomes and reinforce stereotypes about what constitutes success in school. The validity and reliability of standardized tests are also subject to scrutiny. While these tests are intended to measure what students know and can do, there is ongoing debate about whether they truly capture the intended constructs. Factors such as test anxiety, unfamiliarity with the testing format, or external circumstances on the day of the test can all influence performance, raising questions about the accuracy and fairness of the results. Additionally, the heavy reliance on standardized test scores in decision-making processes, such as school funding, teacher evaluations, or graduation requirements, can create perverse incentives, leading to practices such as cheating, narrowing of the curriculum, or even pushing low-performing students out of the testing pool. In response to these critiques, some educators and policymakers have advocated for alternative approaches to assessment. Performance-based assessments, portfolios, and project-based learning offer ways to evaluate students' skills and understanding in more authentic and holistic contexts. These methods can capture a broader range of competencies, including critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity, while providing opportunities for students to demonstrate their learning in meaningful ways. However, implementing such alternatives at scale presents its own set of challenges, including issues of reliability, comparability, and resource allocation. Balancing the need for accountability and equity with the desire for more comprehensive and individualized assessment remains a complex and ongoing endeavor. The debate over standardized testing is further complicated by the diverse purposes these tests are intended to serve. While some are designed primarily for diagnostic or formative purposes, helping teachers identify students' strengths and areas for improvement, others are used for high-stakes decisions, such as promotion, graduation, or school rankings. The appropriateness of standardized testing depends in part on the context and the specific goals it is meant to achieve. For example, a low-stakes assessment used to inform instruction may pose fewer risks than a high-stakes exam that determines a student's future opportunities. Recognizing the limitations and potential consequences of standardized testing is crucial in ensuring that these tools are used judiciously and ethically. Technology has introduced new dimensions to the world of standardized testing, offering both opportunities and challenges. Computer-based assessments can provide immediate feedback, adapt to individual students' skill levels, and enable the inclusion of interactive tasks that go beyond traditional multiple-choice questions. These innovations hold promise for making assessments more engaging and reflective of real-world skills. At the same time, concerns about digital equity, data privacy, and the risk of technical glitches must be carefully managed to ensure that technology enhances rather than hinders the assessment process. International comparisons, such as those provided by the Program for International Student Assessment, PISA, or the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, TIMSS, have brought standardized testing to the forefront of global education policy. These large-scale assessments offer valuable insights into the strengths and weaknesses of different educational systems, informing policy decisions and fostering cross-cultural learning. However, the emphasis on rankings and competition can sometimes overshadow the complex social, economic, and cultural factors that shape educational outcomes. Policymakers must be cautious in interpreting and applying the results of international assessments, recognizing that standardized test scores are only one piece of the puzzle. The COVID-19 pandemic has further complicated the landscape of standardized testing, disrupting traditional modes of assessment and prompting a re-evaluation of their role and necessity. School closures, remote learning, and unequal access to technology have highlighted long-standing inequities and raised questions about the fairness and feasibility of administering standardized tests under such conditions. In some cases, testing requirements have been suspended or modified, prompting broader discussions about alternative measures of student learning and progress. The pandemic has underscored the need for flexibility, adaptability, and a renewed focus on the holistic development of students. Looking ahead, the future of standardized testing will likely depend on the ability of educators, policymakers, and communities to strike a balance between the need for reliable, comparable data and the imperative to support diverse learners in meaningful and equitable ways. This may involve reimagining assessment systems to incorporate a wider range of measures, investing in teacher professional development, and engaging students and families as partners in the learning process. It also requires ongoing research and dialogue to ensure that assessment practices evolve in response to changing needs and contexts. In conclusion, standardized testing occupies a complex and contested space within the field of education. Its proponents emphasize the benefits of objectivity, accountability, efficiency, and comparability, while its critics highlight concerns related to narrowness, inequity, stress, and unintended consequences. The challenge lies in harnessing the strengths of standardized testing while addressing its limitations, ensuring that assessment serves as a tool for supporting learning rather than an end in itself. By adopting a critical and reflective approach, stakeholders can work together to create assessment systems that promote excellence, equity, and the holistic development of all students.